Daniel Carter stared at the strange letter in his hands. The paper felt old and expensive, with symbols that glowed slightly in the dim light of his small apartment. A real paper letter was rare these days. Most people hadn't seen one in years. Report to the Galactic Embassy, Earth Sector 7, tomorrow at 800 hours. The message was simple, but it made no sense. Daniel had been out of the military for 3 years now. After 15 years in Special Forces, he had seen enough killing and had chosen a quiet life instead. He ran his fingers through his short brown hair and sighed. Curious despite himself, he decided he would go. What else did he have to do anyway? The next morning, Daniel stood in front of the massive Galactic Embassy building. It rose 100 stories into the sky, its strange alien architecture both beautiful and unsettling. Guards with blue skin and 4 arms checked his letter and waved him through security. 5th floor, human. The ambassador is waiting, one guard said, not bothering to hide the distaste in his voice. Daniel had dealt with aliens before, but never the high-ranking ones. Most humans hadn't. Earth was still new to the galactic community. Only 50 years had passed since first contact, and humans were seen as the primitive newcomers. On the 5th floor, a tall, thin alien with pale green skin greeted him. "Mr. Carter, I am Ambassador Selfar. Thank you for coming on such short notice." The alien's voice had an odd musical quality to it. "Why am I here?" Daniel asked directly. The ambassador gestured to a chair. "Please sit. What I am about to tell you will sound strange, but I assure you it is genuine." He placed a small device on the table between them, and a hologram appeared showing a regal alien with golden scales and 6 eyes. "This is Emperor Vothran Vai, ruler of the Galactic Imperium that spans over 6,000 worlds," Silfar explained. "The Emperor has personally requested you, Daniel Carter, to serve as his bodyguard." Daniel laughed. He couldn't help it. "You must have the wrong guy. I'm nobody special." "That is where you are incorrect," Silfar said, his face completely serious. "The Emperor reviewed the files of over 500 human military veterans. He selected you personally. Your combat record, your adaptability, your unpredictability. These qualities interest him greatly. There must be thousands of alien bodyguards who would be stronger, faster. The Emperor has specifically requested a human, only a human. And among humans, he has chosen you." Silfar slid a small data pad across the table. "Your compensation package. I believe you will find it adequate." Daniel looked at the number and felt his mouth go dry. It was more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. "Why me?" he asked again, suspicion growing in his mind. "The Emperor has his reasons. He does not share them with me." Zilthar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I should inform you that many in the Imperial Court are strongly opposed to this decision. A human bodyguard is unprecedented. You will face resistance." Daniel thought about his empty apartment, his empty life since leaving the service. Here was something new, something challenging, and maybe, just maybe, something important. "When would I leave?" "Tonight. A transport is waiting. You would not return to Earth for at least 3 standard years." Silfar tilted his head. "Do you accept?" Daniel stared at the hologram of the Emperor. Why would the ruler of most of the known galaxy want him, specifically? It made no sense, but he had to admit he was curious. "I'll need to pack a bag," Daniel said. Zilthar's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Everything will be provided. The Emperor has been most insistent on your comfort." As Daniel left the embassy that evening on a shuttle bound for the Imperial transport in orbit, he looked down at the Earth growing smaller below him. He had a feeling that when he returned, if he returned, nothing would ever be the same again. The journey to Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Imperium, took 3 weeks. Daniel spent most of that time studying alien cultures and protocols. The ship's AI taught him basic Imperial language and customs. By the time they arrived, he could at least greet important officials without causing a diplomatic incident. As the transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Daniel stood at the viewing port. The sight took his breath away. Nexus Prime was surrounded by massive orbital rings that glittered with lights. Thousands of ships moved in perfect patterns around the planet. On the surface, a city covered nearly half the world, its towers reaching up toward space. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Captain Noor, the transport's human pilot. "The Imperial Palace is that gold structure in the center. They say it's bigger than all of New York City." The landing was smooth, but the welcome was cold. A group of tall, elegant aliens with features that reminded Daniel of cats waited at the dock. Their eyes, vertical slits of yellow and green, watched him with open distaste. A slim alien with silver fur stepped forward. "I am Lord Zekval, Chief Advisor to Emperor Voth Ran Vi." His voice was like silk over steel. "You are the human bodyguard." It wasn't a question, but Daniel nodded anyway. "Daniel Carter, sir." "You will address me as Lord Zekval," the alien said sharply. "Follow me. Try not to touch anything." As they walked through massive hallways with ceilings hundreds of feet high, Daniel noticed the stairs. Servants, nobles, and guards all stopped to watch him pass. Some looked curious, but most seemed afraid or angry. "The Emperor's decision to bring you here has caused quite a stir," Lord Zekval said without looking back. "Many believe humans are too primitive to serve in the Imperial Palace." "And what do you believe, Lord Zekval?" Daniel asked. The alien stopped and turned, his tail swishing once. "I believe you will fail spectacularly, and I will be there to witness it." They continued through security checkpoints. Daniel couldn't help but notice flaws in the system. Guards positioned in blind spots. Sensors that could be easily blocked. It was as if the palace security had been designed by someone who had never faced a real threat. Finally, they'd reached enormous doors carved from what looked like a single piece of blue crystal. Guards with ceremonial spears stood at attention. "The Emperor awaits inside," Lord Zekval said. "Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not approach within 5 paces unless instructed. Do not make sudden movements." His eyes narrowed. "And do not embarrass me, human." The doors swung open silently. The throne room beyond was vast, with a ceiling that seemed to show the actual stars above. The floor was like a mirror, reflecting everything. Courtiers in elaborate clothes lined the walls, all turning to stare at Daniel. At the far end, on a floating platform of light, sat Emperor Voth Ran Vi. He was more impressive than his hologram. Golden scales covered his body, and his 6 eyes glowed with inner light. A crown of what looked like living flame hovered above his head. Lord Zekval bowed deeply. "Your Imperial Majesty, I present the human, Daniel Carter." Daniel bowed as he had been taught. When he straightened, he was surprised to see the Emperor had stood up. The entire court gasped. "Daniel Carter of Earth," the Emperor said, his voice deep and resonant. "At last." Then, to the shock of everyone present, the Emperor walked down from his throne and approached Daniel directly. The guards tensed. Lord Zekval looked horrified. The Emperor stopped just in front of Daniel and did something no one expected. He smiled. "I have waited a very long time to meet one of your kind," Emperor Voth Ran said. "We have much to discuss, you and I, much indeed." Daniel felt every eye in the room on him. Whatever game was being played here, he was right in the middle of it. And he still had no idea why. 3 weeks passed. Daniel settled into a routine as the Emperor's bodyguard. Each morning, he would wake before dawn, train in his private quarters, then take up his position by the Emperor's side. The court nobles still stared and whispered, but Daniel ignored them. Today was different. The Imperial Palace buzzed with activity as servants prepared for a diplomatic reception. 6 new planetary systems were joining the Imperium, and their representatives would attend the ceremony. "You understand your duties for tonight," Lord Zekval asked Daniel as they walked through the grand reception hall. "Stay near the Emperor. Watch for threats. "Don't speak unless spoken to," Daniel replied. Lord Zekvael nodded stiffly. "You will carry only the ceremonial blade. No energy weapons are permitted in the Emperor's presence during official functions." Daniel looked at the ornate knife given to him. It was beautiful but practically useless in a real fight. "And if there's trouble, the Imperial Guards will handle any unlikely situations," Lord Zekvael said with a thin smile. "Your presence is mostly symbolic, human." That evening, Daniel stood 3 paces behind Emperor Vothran as dignitaries from across the galaxy presented themselves. The reception hall glittered with light reflected from the jewels and ceremonial armor of 100 different species. Daniel's eyes never stopped moving, scanning the crowd, the entrances, the servants. Something felt wrong. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, an instinct that had saved his life more than once. He noticed 3 servers who moved differently than the others. Their uniforms were correct, but they held themselves like soldiers, not servants. They were spreading out around the room. Daniel stepped closer to the Emperor and whispered, "Your Majesty, something's not right." Before the Emperor could respond, the lights flickered. In that moment of darkness, one of the suspicious servers pulled out a hidden weapon. "Crimson Nebula," the attacker shouted. "Death to the Imperium." Daniel moved without thinking. He pushed the Emperor down and leaped toward the nearest attacker. The ceremonial knife in his hand caught the light as he threw it with perfect accuracy. It struck the assassin's weapon, knocking it aside just as it fired. The energy blast hit the ceiling instead of the Emperor. Guards rushed forward, but the other 2 assassins were already moving, pulling weapons from under their clothes. Daniel had no weapon now, but that didn't stop him. He grabbed a heavy silver platter from a nearby table and flung it like a disc. It hit the second assassin in the head with enough force to knock him unconscious. The third assassin fired at Daniel. He dropped and rolled across the floor, coming up right in front of the surprised attacker. 3 quick strikes. Throat, solar plexus, knee, and the third assassin collapsed. The entire attack had lasted less than 30 seconds. The room fell silent. The Imperial Guards finally reached the Emperor, forming a protective circle around him. Daniel stood among the fallen attackers, breathing steadily, eyes still scanning for other threats. "Impossible," whispered one of the court nobles. "No human should move that fast." Emperor Vothran stepped past his guards and approached Daniel. "Are you injured?" he asked, his 6 eyes blinking with concern. "No, Your Majesty," Daniel replied. The Emperor nodded, then turned to the stunned crowd. "The reception will continue. Our enemies should know that such attempts are futile." As the event slowly resumed, Daniel noticed the way the court nobles looked at him now. The contempt was gone, replaced by something else. Fear. Later that night, Lord Zekvael confronted Daniel in the hallway outside the Emperor's chambers. "What are you?" he demanded, his tail lashing angrily. "No human moves like that. No human reacts that quickly." Daniel met his gaze calmly. "I'm just a soldier doing his job." "You are something else," Lord Zekvael hissed, "and I will discover what the Emperor knows about humans that the rest of us do not." Daniel watched him leave, wondering the same thing himself. News of the assassination attempt spread quickly through the Imperial Palace. Servants bowed their heads respectfully when Daniel walked by. Guards nodded to him with newfound respect, but the court nobles still watched him with suspicious eyes. 1 week after the attack, Daniel was in the palace gardens, enjoying a rare moment alone, when someone called his name. "Mr. Carter." "Daniel Carter." He turned to see a human woman approaching. She wore the blue and silver uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her red hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she carried herself with confidence. "I'm Katie Rivera, newly assigned to the Earth Embassy here on Nexus Prime," she said, extending her hand. Daniel shook it, surprised and pleased to see another human face. "Nice to meet you. What brings you to the palace gardens?" Katie glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Actually, I came looking for you. There's something you need to know." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Can we talk somewhere private?" They found a secluded bench partially hidden by tall blue plants with bell-shaped flowers. Katie pulled out a small device and pressed a button. "This creates a sound barrier. We can speak freely for about 5 minutes." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "That's some serious tech for a diplomat." "I'm not just a diplomat," Katie admitted. "I work for Earth Intelligence. We've been monitoring your situation here." "My situation?" Katie leaned closer. "Do you know what happened to the Emperor's previous bodyguards?" Daniel frowned. "I was told the position was newly created." "That's a lie," Katie said flatly. "There were 7 before you, all from different species, all considered elite warriors, all dead within 6 months of service." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. "How did they die?" "Officially, training accidents, health failures, one apparent suicide." Katie's green eyes met his. "Unofficially, we think they were eliminated when they learned too much." "About what?" "That's what we don't know." Katie handed him a small data chip. "But we found fragments of classified Imperial records mentioning Earth. They refer to our planet as the Crucible, and to humans as the Unexpected Variables. The records date back thousands of years before official first contact." Daniel stared at the chip in his palm. "That's impossible. Humans weren't space-capable until 50 years ago." "That's the official history," Katie said. "But what if it's not the whole truth? What if humans have been to the stars before?" The device in Katie's hand peeped softly. "Our time's almost up. The court is watching you, Daniel, especially Lord Zekval. He's been accessing ancient military archives that have been sealed for centuries." Daniel pocketed the data chip. "What should I do?" "Keep your eyes open. Find out why the Emperor chose you specifically." Katie stood up. "And be careful who you trust." She reached out as if to shake his hand again, but instead pressed another small device into his palm. "Emergency communicator. Contact me if you need help." After Katie left, Daniel wandered the gardens, his mind racing. 7 previous bodyguards, all dead. Ancient records mentioning Earth. It was too much to be coincidence. That evening, as Daniel stood guard during the Emperor's private dinner, he noticed Lord Zekval watching him with calculated intensity. The chief advisor was speaking to a group of nobles, his voice too low to hear. One phrase reached Daniel's ears: unnatural selection. Later, as Daniel escorted the Emperor back to his chambers, Vothran suddenly spoke. "You seem troubled tonight, Daniel Carter." Daniel hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "Your Majesty, I've heard rumors about previous bodyguards." The Emperor's 6 eyes blinked slowly. "Ah, I wondered when you would discover that." He stopped walking and turned to Daniel. "Would you like to know the truth?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "Then come to my private study tomorrow night, alone." The Emperor's voice grew quiet. "There are things about your species that even you do not know. Things that the rest of the galaxy fears to remember." Daniel could barely focus on his duties the next day. The Emperor's promise of truth kept spinning in his mind. What secrets about humanity could be so important? Why would the galaxy fear to remember? That night, Daniel made his way to the Emperor's private study. Unlike the grand public rooms of the palace, this space felt almost cozy. Books made of actual paper lined the walls. Strange artifacts sat on shelves. A large window showed the 3 moons of Nexus Prime rising over the city. Emperor Vothran sat in a simple chair, his crown and formal robes absent. He looked smaller, older without them. "Sit, Daniel Carter," the Emperor said, gesturing to a chair across from him. "Would you like a drink? This is water from your Earth oceans. Quite refreshing." Daniel sat but declined the drink. "You promised me the truth, Your Majesty." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Yes, but I must ask you first. Do you know much about human history? The very ancient past?" "Just what they taught us in school. Evolution from primates, early civilizations, the usual story." "The usual story," the Emperor repeated. A carefully constructed story. He stood and walked to a wall that suddenly became transparent, revealing a hidden room beyond. Inside was a single display case containing what looked like a primitive stone spear. "This weapon is over 50,000 years old," the Emperor said. "It was not made on Earth." Daniel stared at the spear. "I don't understand." "Humans did not evolve on Earth, Daniel. They were placed there." The Emperor's 6 eyes fixed on Daniel's face. "After they nearly destroyed the galaxy." The room seemed to spin around Daniel. "That's impossible. Thousands of years ago, humans were known throughout the stars as the most dangerous species ever evolved," the Emperor continued. "Not because of your technology, which was actually quite average. Not because of your physical strength, which is modest compared to many species. Then why? 3 things." The Emperor held up one clawed finger. "First, your adaptability. Humans can survive in environments that would kill most species." A second finger. "Second, your endurance. The human body can recover from incredible damage and continue fighting long after other species would fall." A third finger. "And third, your capacity for calculated violence when threatened." The Emperor returned to his seat. "Most species either lack the instinct for violence or cannot control it when it emerges. Humans can choose violence as a tool and wield it with precision." Daniel shook his head. "But if humans were so dangerous, what happened? Why don't we remember any of this?" "There was a war," the Emperor said quietly. "A terrible war that nearly ended all civilization in the galaxy. Humans were at the center of it. When it ended, the surviving powers made a decision. Human memories were wiped. Your species was placed on Earth, genetically modified to forget, and the planet was quarantined. For what purpose? Some wanted humans eliminated entirely. Others, like my ancestors, argued that the galaxy might need human abilities again someday." The Emperor leaned forward. "Earth was designed as a testing ground, a crucible to shape your species, to let you evolve naturally but in isolation, to see if you would develop differently." Daniel struggled to process this information. And the previous bodyguards, the ones who died. They discovered parts of this truth and reacted poorly. Some tried to kill me. Others tried to warn their worlds to prepare for war against humans. Why tell me this? Why choose a human bodyguard at all? The Emperor's expression grew grave. "Because ancient forces are stirring again, because I believe the time has come to end Earth's quarantine." He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "And because I need someone who can protect me from what's coming. Someone with the unique abilities only a human possesses." "What is coming?" Daniel asked. "War," said the Emperor simply. "And this time, we will need the humans to fight on our side." Daniel left the Emperor's study with his mind spinning. If what the Emperor said was true, everything he knew about human history was a lie. Humans were not native to Earth. They were exiles, prisoners, their memories wiped clean. He needed to talk to someone. He pulled out the communication device Katie had given him and sent a simple message: "Need to meet." They met in an old garden at the edge of the palace grounds. Katie listened without interrupting as Daniel explained what the Emperor had told him. "Do you believe him?" she asked when he finished. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "It sounds crazy, but it would explain why he chose a human bodyguard. Why the court fears me." Katie nodded. "I've been doing some digging of my own. I found something you need to see." She pulled out a small projector and activated it. A 3-dimensional map of the palace appeared. "These are the secure areas Lord Zekval has been visiting late at night." Daniel studied the map. The ancient archives. The genetic research labs. And this. Katie zoomed in on a section deep beneath the palace. An old chamber that doesn't appear on any official maps. It's called the Vault of Memory. "What's in it?" "I don't know, but Lord Zekval visits it every 3rd night." Katie turned off the projector. "There's more. I've identified several high-ranking officials who meet in secret with Zekval. They call themselves the Eternal Order." Daniel frowned. A secret society within the court. Yes, and they're obsessed with preventing something they call the human resurgence. According to fragments of data I've recovered, they believe there's a prophecy about humans returning to power in the galaxy. Daniel paced back and forth. This is getting deeper by the minute. We need proof, something solid. I might have a way to get it, Katie said. There's a genetic database in the main science wing. If humans were modified, as the Emperor claims, there might be records of our original genetic structure. How do we access it? I have diplomatic clearance to most research facilities, but I'd need a distraction to access the restricted sections. Daniel nodded. I can create a distraction. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Katie agreed. The next evening, Daniel deliberately triggered a minor security alert in the east wing of the palace. As guards rushed to investigate, Katie slipped into the genetic research lab. 2 hours later, they met again in the garden. Katie's face was pale. I found it, she whispered. Genetic comparisons between current humans and something labeled original template. Daniel, our DNA has been modified. Sections are missing, others have been added. What was changed? I couldn't access all the data, but I found references to memory centers in the brain, aggression control, and something called species recognition patterns. Katie showed him the data on her pad. They changed how we recognize our own kind, made us more tribal, more divided. Daniel stared at the complex genetic diagrams. Is there anything else? Yes. Katie looked around nervously before continuing. I found partial records suggesting that humans once ruled a vast portion of the galaxy, not through conquest, but through a mix of diplomacy and something the records called terrifying resolve. Meaning, when humans committed to a cause, they would pursue it with a determination that frightened other species. They would endure any hardship, make any sacrifice to achieve their goals. Katie's voice dropped to a whisper. The court's fear isn't just prejudice, Daniel. It's based on ancestral memory of human capabilities. Daniel was silent for a long moment. We need to know what's in that vault of memory. And we need to find out exactly what Lord Zekval is planning. It's dangerous, Katie warned. If they catch us. They're already moving against the Emperor, Daniel said. And if he's right about a war coming, we need to know everything. Katie nodded. The vault, then. Tomorrow night. The Celestial Convergence was the biggest event in the imperial calendar. Once every 8 years, the 3 moons of Nexus Prime aligned perfectly in the night sky. Tradition required the Emperor to perform an ancient ritual on the central spire of the palace, visible to all citizens below. Daniel didn't like it. The Emperor would be exposed, vulnerable. But Vothran insisted on following tradition. My people need to see me, he told Daniel that morning, especially now. As the palace prepared for the ceremony, Daniel met Katie near the service corridors. I couldn't get into the vault, she whispered. Security's too tight. But I found something else. She showed him a message on her pad. Communications between Lord Zekval and someone called the Elder. They're planning something tonight, during the convergence. Daniel frowned. An attack? With all the extra security. That's the thing. Security systems throughout the palace are scheduled for a routine update right before the ceremony. Katie's eyes met his. They're going to shut down the defenses. I need to warn the Emperor. Daniel turned to go, but Katie grabbed his arm. Wait, there's more. Her voice was urgent. I found references to eliminating the human problem once and for all. I think they're targeting both you and the Emperor. Daniel nodded grimly. Stay safe. If things go bad, get to the Earth Embassy. The evening came, and the palace glowed with celebration lights. Daniel stood at the Emperor's side as they prepared to ascend the central spire. A strange feeling grew in Daniel's gut, the same instinct that had warned him before. Your Majesty, he said quietly. Something's wrong. We should postpone the ceremony. The Emperor looked at him with all 6 eyes. We cannot. But I trust your instincts, Daniel Carter. What do you suggest? Before Daniel could answer, The lights throughout the palace flickered and went out. Emergency systems failed to activate. In the darkness, Daniel heard the sound of energy weapons powering up. "Stay behind me," he ordered the Emperor, drawing his ceremonial blade, the only weapon he was permitted during the ritual. Attackers emerged from hidden passages. They wore the uniforms of the Imperial Guard, but Daniel recognized Lord Zekval leading them. "The time has come," Zekval announced. "The human experiment ends tonight, along with your misguided rule, Vothran." Daniel pushed the Emperor into a small alcove as energy blasts scorched the wall where they had stood. He counted at least 20 attackers surrounding them. "Is there another way out?" he asked the Emperor. "No. All passages are sealed during security updates." Daniel assessed their position. The alcove provided temporary cover, but they were trapped. With only a knife against energy weapons, their chances were slim. Then Daniel remembered something from his first day in the palace, the security flaws he had noticed, the blind spots, the sensor placements. He had a plan, but it was risky. "Your Majesty, I need you to trust me completely," he said. The Emperor nodded. "What do you need?" "Your ceremonial robe, and I need you to stay here, no matter what you hear." Daniel took the Emperor's shimmering golden robe and wrapped it around a decorative staff from the wall. In the dim emergency lighting, it looked like a figure. "When I give the signal, push this out into the corridor," Daniel instructed. "Then stay down." With that, Daniel slipped out of the alcove, keeping to the shadows. He moved silently, just as he had been trained years ago on Earth. His eyes adjusted quickly to the darkness. He took out the first guard from behind, covering the alien's mouth to silence him. Using the guard's own weapon, he created a distraction by firing at the far wall. As the attackers turned toward the noise, Daniel moved again, taking down 2 more. "They're flanking us," shouted one of Zekval's soldiers. Daniel gave the signal, and the Emperor pushed the robed staff into the corridor. Energy blasts immediately hit it from multiple directions. While the attackers focused on the decoy, Daniel struck. He moved with incredible speed, disarming and disabling Zekval's forces one by one in the darkness. His human eyes could see better in low light than many alien species, giving him an advantage. One by one, the attackers fell. In the darkness, they fired wildly, sometimes hitting their own people. Daniel moved like a shadow between them, using their confusion against them. When only Lord Zekval remained, the palace lights suddenly came back on. Zekval stood alone, surrounded by his fallen soldiers. His silver fur was dirty, and his usually perfect clothes were torn. He stared at Daniel with hatred in his yellow eyes. "This is why they fear you," he hissed. "This is why humans must never be allowed to return to the stars." Daniel kept his stolen weapon aimed at Zekval. "It's over. Drop your weapon." Instead, Zekval laughed. "You think this was my entire plan? Fool. Even now, the Eternal Order spreads the truth about humans across the galaxy. Worlds are arming themselves. They will never accept the Emperor's plan to bring humans back into galactic society." "The Emperor is trying to prepare for a war," Daniel said. "A war that threatens everyone." "There is no war coming except the one that humans will bring," Zekval shouted. He raised his weapon, not at Daniel, but at the alcove where the Emperor was hidden. Daniel fired first. Zekval fell, his weapon clattering to the floor. In the aftermath, loyal Imperial guards finally broke through the sealed doors. They found Daniel standing protectively in front of the Emperor, surrounded by fallen conspirators. Security footage of the battle spread across galactic networks within hours. Species throughout the Imperium watched in a mixture of awe and fear as a single human defeated forces that should have overwhelmed him. 3 days later, Daniel stood beside the Emperor's throne as Vothran addressed the Imperial court. The room was packed with nobles, military leaders, and representatives from 100 worlds. "The conspiracy has been exposed," the Emperor announced. "Those who survived will face justice, but we must now address the truth they tried to hide. A murmur ran through the crowd as the Emperor stood. For thousands of years, we have kept Earth quarantined. We told ourselves it was for the safety of the galaxy. But now I see it was fear that guided our ancestors' decisions. The Emperor's voice grew stronger. Fear of what humans might become if allowed to reach their full potential. The court watched in stunned silence as the Emperor continued. Today, I announce my intention to formally end Earth's quarantine. Humanity will be invited to join galactic society as full members of the Imperium. Chaos erupted in the court. Some nobles shouted protests. Others looked thoughtful, even relieved. Through it all, Daniel stood silently beside the throne, his presence a reminder of what one human could do. In the days that followed, many court officials who once feared Daniel now sought his advice. They recognized that human perspectives might be valuable in the coming changes. Katie was named Earth's first official ambassador to the Imperium. She worked alongside Daniel to prepare humanity for the shocking truth about its heritage. One evening, Daniel found the Emperor in his private study, looking at the ancient human spear in its display case. "Have you ever wondered why I chose you specifically, Daniel Carter?" the Emperor asked. "I assumed it was my military record," Daniel replied. The Emperor made a sound like gentle laughter. "No, I chose you because of what you did after your military service." Daniel frowned. "I didn't do anything special." "Precisely. You chose peace. You walked away from violence when you could have continued as a warrior." The Emperor turned to face him. "I needed someone who understood that humans' greatest strength isn't their capacity for fighting, but their ability to choose when not to fight." The Emperor moved to the window, looking out at the stars. The ancient texts say humanity's true strength was never their adaptability or endurance, though these are remarkable. It was their capacity for both terrible destruction and extraordinary compassion. Daniel joined him at the window. "Do you really believe Earth is ready to rejoin the galaxy?" "I believe the galaxy needs humanity, with all its contradictions." The Emperor placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "War is coming, Daniel Carter. But perhaps this time, with humans fighting alongside us rather than against us, we can find a better way through it." As diplomatic ships prepared to depart for Earth, Daniel watched from a palace balcony. Soon, humanity would learn the truth about its past. It would be difficult, confusing, even frightening. But humans were good at adapting. It was, after all, their greatest strength.